Hi. I didn't become fluent in English using just one method. It was a combination of things. But one of the most powerful tools I used was watching TV shows. And in this series, I'm going to break down exactly what worked for me, like TV shows, books, using Anki, and more. So in this video, let's focus on TV shows. And if you haven't seen my previous video where I explain my overall approach to language learning, I would highly recommend starting there. It'll give you the full picture. So a lot of people already try to learn English this way, but very few people are actually confident that they're doing it right. People are constantly asking, should I use subtitles? What kind of shows should I watch? Am I even improving? So let's clear that up. So why should you even watch TV shows or movies to learn English? Because it's one of the closest things to real English. You're exposed to real conversations, real emotions, and real life situations. You're not just learning the language, you're learning how people actually speak and behave. And honestly, it's more fun. And that part matters more than you think. If something isn't engaging, your brain doesn't absorb it well. But when you're emotionally involved, when you're genuinely enjoying what you're watching, it sticks. That's how real learning happens. Now let's talk about subtitles. I'm going to be very direct here. You should watch without subtitles. And here's why. When you watch with subtitles, you think you're listening, but you're not. You're actually reading. It might help your reading a little, but it does very little for your listening. And then people say, but I can't understand anything without subtitles. Good. That struggle is part of the process. Think about babies. They don't understand anything at first. They hear the same sounds again and again, until their brain slowly starts to recognize patterns. And that's exactly what you're doing. You just have to be patient. And one more thing. I think a lot of people constantly worry, like, am I actually improving? Let me tell you this. You probably are. You just don't notice it. Language learning is a subconscious process, and your brain is constantly picking up patterns in the background, even when it feels like nothing is happening. It's not like memorizing something where you can clearly see progress every day. It's slow, it's invisible, but it's definitely happening. So instead of overthinking it, just trust the process. If you stay consistent, it will click at some point. It always does. There are so many reasons why native speakers are hard to understand. They speak fast, first of all. They don't always pronounce things clearly. They slur words just like you do in your own language, right? And then there's slang. You're not going to learn that from a textbook. You can only pick it up through real content that native speakers actually watch. So, what kind of shows should you choose? There are two things you need to keep in mind. First, enjoyment. Don't just watch something because someone recommended it. If it doesn't genuinely interest you, you won't stay consistent. Find something you actually want to watch, because the more engaged you are, the more English you will absorb without even trying. And second, difficulty. Ideally, those shows shouldn't be too difficult. It's actually better if it's slightly easier. When it's easier, you have the mental space to figure things out from context when you hear unfamiliar words or expressions. But what if you find something that's really interesting but also quite difficult? I say go for it. Enjoyment matters more than difficulty. And the advantage of TV shows and movies is that you have visual cues. Even if you don't understand every word, you can still follow what's going on. Now, how should you actually watch? Should you use shadowing? Should you watch the same show over and over again until you memorize every line? You know, I've tried pretty much everything. Shadowing, repeating the same movie dozens of times, you name it. And honestly, if you enjoy those methods, go for it. But personally, I found that watching a wide variety of shows works the best. When you watch the same thing repeatedly, your brain gets used to it. There's less stimulation. But when everything is new, your brain pays more attention and things stick so much better. Also, by watching different shows, you expose yourself to a wider range of situations, expressions, and ways of speaking. And that's far more useful than perfectly memorizing a single scene. So, no, watching TV shows isn't the only reason I became fluent, but it was definitely one of the most powerful tools I used. And if you use it the right way, it can make a huge difference. If you want to understand the full picture, how all of this fits together, check out my previous video where I explain my overall approach to language learning. And in the next videos, I'll break down the other methods I used, like reading books and using Anki, and how they all connect. Because fluency doesn't come from one thing. It comes from combining the right methods in the right way.